Welcome to the Write Good Books podcast, the audio companion to WriteGoodBooks.com, with your host Jason Bougger.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jason. I'm joined by our co-host Scott Michael Childers. How you doing, Scott?
I'm Peachy Keen Jellybean.
Excellent. Today, I want to talk about what to not do to get published, or how to not get published, however you want to phrase that.
How I quit worrying and loved the rejection letter.
I love the rejection letter as well, because it means you're trying.
That's true.
That is true. I'd like to define what we're going to use for publish, because publish has a lot of different definitions in today's world of writing. So we're going to use publish as in you send someone a short story or a query letter and they read it and make a judgment whether or not they're going to accept you or not. Does that sound fair?
Well, accept your work. They don't know about you as an individual.
Yes, you're right. Whether or not they accept your work. You got me on a technicality.
That's what I do, folks.
I'll pull a little bit of my editor hat on for this one as well and talk about some of the stuff I see with theme of absence. I still think the biggest thing is the guidelines. You got to read the guidelines. If you submit a story anywhere, or if you send a query letter to an agent or a publication, you have to read their guidelines. I'll say it 3 times, read their guidelines, read their guidelines, read their guidelines, because if you don't read their guidelines, they're going to say, this person didn't read the guidelines. If they don't care, I don't care. Delete.
Well, it's not just read the guidelines.
Oh, follow the guidelines. That is also important. Follow the guidelines.
Apparently, I'm in a very pedantic type of mood tonight. But yeah, it's not just writing. My office gives scholarships to area people, and I don't know how many submissions I get that I would love to give them money to go do things. But they didn't follow the guidelines, and so I have to say no. So it could have been the best thing I've ever seen anyone try to do with a small amount of money, but they didn't follow the guidelines, so I didn't have the information I needed to actually give them money. So even if your work's the greatest, follow those guidelines so they can give you money or exposure or whatever else they're paying.
Right. Contributors, copies, or whatnot.
Yeah.
And you know, why is it important? You might say, well, who cares if I follow the guidelines? Well, it is important because if someone says they won't accept a story formatted for Word 97 or something, they're not going to read it.
Or they may not be able to.
Yeah, that's a bigger issue.
It may as well have been written in a different language that no one on earth can read.
Right, only those computers and robots.
Yeah, those pesky robots.
And guidelines are more important. They're also important for things other than format. You know, word count. If they say they want 3,000 words, you send them 5,000 words. They're not going to say, well, this guy looks so promising that I'll read those extra 2,000 words and assume they're great. They're going to say, no, I don't have time to read 5,000 words. I want 3,000 words. Delete. That's my theme of absence editor hat speaking.
And also genre and topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, this might have been a really good piece that this person put in, but I'm publishing a science fiction e-zine or collaboration or novel, and they sent me historical fiction about Babylonia. Nope, I can't use it. Yeah. Not going to pay for it. Not going to put it in my collection.
Yeah, we don't accept poems. Nice poem, I don't accept poems. Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah. And this is one of those cases where people say rules are meant to be broken. No, not in this case.
Not when there's this much competition.
Well, especially if you don't have a name. If you're just starting out, absolutely follow the guidelines.
Yeah, submit to the right place, the right agent. If an agent isn't representing young adult, don't send them a query for your young adult novel. You're just wasting your time and their time.
Yeah.
And you're not wasting a lot of their time. You're wasting 10 seconds of their time for them to get to the word young adult and hit delete.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and this falls into some stories that I've heard is like, if it's supposed to be addressed to a person, make sure that person's name is correct. You know, whether it's the agent or an editor at a publishing house or whatever. If you can't be concerned to send it to the right person, they aren't going to be concerned to keep it in their mailbox.
And that's really important when you're sending out query letters to agencies that have multiple agents, because certain ones will represent certain genres.
Yes.
And if you send it just to the head of the agency, they might not represent that, and there's no guarantee they're going to forward that on to the right agent if you're not specifically addressing that literary agent.
Yeah. Well, in some cases, it may be an intern that gets the to whom it may concern. Well, their job is to open it up, and, they're not going to spend a lot of time because they're going through the non-guideline pile.
Right, their job is to weed the slush pile.
Yeah.
Well, what else can you do to guarantee an unsuccessful publishing attempt?
Well, this comes from some personal experience in hiring people. So I'm basing this off of looking at employment applications, but it goes towards submissions for publication as well. If you're looking for print, make sure it's legible. And I don't know if you're like me, but you've heard the expression, use fancy paper or use colorful paper. Make an impression. Make them remember you. No, they'll remember you for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. They don't want anything fancy. They want plain. Times New Roman 12.
Yeah, whatever their guideline says.
Their guidelines are.
But yeah, it's making the impression can backfire dramatically, especially if you're doing some sort of brightly colored paper to someone who's publishing grim dark fantasy. Not a good match.
No, it's not. And writing is a business. If you're a writer hoping to make a living doing this, you have to view it like a business, and you don't want to send flower-colored paper on a resume or a query letter or anything else. Now, a lot of the times, I think most publications are electronic now, so you're not going to have to worry about the type of paper you print on, but use the guidelines for their font size, and don't do anything funny. Don't fill it up with boldface. Don't have anything blinking, and don't use any funny characters ever.
Well, and then your email address that you're sending those type of things from. Don't make it
obscene.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something I could say and still keeping a clean rating on iTunes. Again, this comes from my experience in hiring people. I would get some really weird email addresses like, am I going to want this person to represent my organization? So if I'm an editor trying to get the next new writer or a literary agent, it's like, do I really want baby mama 37 to represent our science fiction? Probably not. There might be some mommy blogs that would fit adequately for them. But yeah, it's like, have something that has your name, your publishing name, as opposed to some witty thing that you got when you were in college or high school.
That can lead us into social media too. If you're going for a mainstream traditional publisher and they go look at your Facebook page and find all sorts of drama and just weirdness or negativity, I could see that being, if you're almost, and I say, well, this person looks like they're kind of cuckoo, maybe we'll go in the other direction.
Again, unless that is your brand that you are going for.
That's true.
And that's not going to work for everyone anyway. And oftentimes that works after you've gotten in, and then you branch out to a more extreme point of view one way or another. And we've kind of been picking on flowery and air quotes girly stuff, but it works the other way as well.
Oh yeah, don't go on Facebook and act like a total misogynist jerk and
yes,
expect or bigot or anything like that.
Yes. It works for all genders and all backgrounds.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah, don't be offensive.
Unless you're trying to be offensive again to those niche markets, in which case you're probably not going to listen to what we say here anyway.
That's true.
And we may just cut most of this discussion at this point. But again, you're trying to present a publishable persona, and the way you submit, just the layout and stuff. Make it professional. Make it follow the guidelines. So now we've run that to the ground.
What else can you do to not be published? Burn bridges. If somebody sends you a rejection letter, never, ever, ever send them back a negative response to that, because eventually you might want to submit to them again. And word travels. If an agent was close to considering you and then turned you down and said try again, and then you responded with something angry, they talk. They're going to say stay away from this person.
Well, and even the same person may be going to different parts of organizations.
Right.
Someone who works in a publishing house now may go into literary agency, or vice versa. Or you might have a writer who becomes an editor.
Yeah.
People move around, word moves around.
Yeah, as big as the business is and as many people are as involved in it, it can still run like a small town. You never know.
Yeah, the
who
higher
you might
up
run into.
the higher up you go, the fewer people there are. Another thing that deals with your submission. When you are given the opportunity to have a narrative explaining your work, whether it's a query letter or maybe a small part of a submission form for shorter works, talk about the piece that you are submitting. There's a lot of people who will submit personal information about themselves that has no relationship to the piece that they are submitting. It's great that you were a policeman for 10 years in this major metropolis, but how does this apply to this science fiction short story that you submitted about crab-like aliens farming?
Right. Your background only matters if it's directly relevant to your product.
Exactly.
If you are a former police officer, and you're writing a crime drama, and then you state in your query letter that you can bring your experience in towards your novel.
Yeah, but again, the majority part of your discussion should be about the piece, not about you.
Right.
Start with the piece. Work that, don't spend the first 3 paragraphs talking about your past. Start with your piece and then add to your qualifications. Or at least quick statement. I was a police officer for 5 years. This informed my writing. Talk about your piece, then expand. Don't make whoever's making that decision go deep into your query letter, because they're not going to spend that much time.
Yeah, they're not. And while on query letters, I like to say keep it professional. Don't try to be cute. Don't try to be funny. If you're submitting a humor story, maybe have some of that personality come through. But if you're not, don't try to tell any jokes in your query letter. Don't say anything like, I'm not that good of a writer. Don't say anything negative about yourself either. That's really a turn-off to editors and agents. Really be professional and talk about the piece no matter what. That's what you're selling. You're not selling yourself. Your own personality can hurt you, but at the early stage, it's not necessarily going to help you. It's going to be more different. They want to buy your book. They don't want to buy you.
Yeah,
at this point.
Especially if you're someone who has not made a major, publication, and you're contacting them. They didn't contact you.
Right.
You're trying to sell this individual work. That's what your foot into the door is. After that comes out, and after it becomes a success, then you have this background where your name will carry you into further endeavors. But just starting out, you don't have that except in very rare circumstances.
Right.
So really concentrate on putting that well-shined, spiffy shoe into the door, and then sell the whole suit after you get in the building. You can't talk about your tie when all they're doing is looking at your shoe.
Exactly. And sell, but don't oversell. Never, ever say something like future bestseller or greatest story ever told. Or
We'll outsell all the Harry Potter books,
right.
50 Shades of Grey, and the Bible all combined.
All combined, yeah. Never, be real, be honest, and just sell your product. Look up how to do some query letters. We should probably do one on query letters sometime too.
Yeah. Let's table that for later.
Yeah, and that's about it. I think my closing thoughts are simply, it's a turnoff if you're unprofessional. It's a turnoff if you try too hard. So just be honest and try to sell your product.
Yeah, and know what your product is. Your product. And here's one thing that Jason and I were talking about before we started recording is, this is probably one of the most negative. Don't is even in the title.
Oh, sure.
But here's the thing. If you do get a rejection letter, even after you avoid all of these possible pitfalls. I think one thing to remember is they are simply saying no to this particular piece and not to you as an individual. Keep that in mind. And I think we've got a rejection thing somewhere in the pipeline, somewhere. I don't remember where or when, but that's also in the pipeline.
Yeah. Rejections are never easy. So, even if you've done some of the things we say you shouldn't do here, you just learn from it and move on.
Yeah. And we can understand. You spent a long time crafting this piece, a lot of effort. There's probably a lot of you as an individual in the piece that you're trying to sell or to get published or whatever. Again, they're not judging you as an individual. So keep at it, keep writing, revise as necessary if you get some feedback you agree with. But most of all, don't create artificial barriers for yourself by doing some of the things we talked about earlier, and keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward always. Don't give up. Check us out on the web at www.writegoodbooks.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
See ya.